Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining this live stream. You may get a bit of competition here from, it's just started to rain quite heavily, so you may hear that in background. Thank you for joining this live stream. In this stream, I'd like to talk about how wokeism and all the bits and pieces that constitute wokeism, the patriarchy, workplace rape and sexual harassment, all this sort of stuff, how these things are cynically used by some of the folks in the business sector, how they use this sort of thing to try and kneecap rivals or get rid of people or use it as a pretext to fire someone who has an otherwise unblemished record or so on. So they go to great lengths to stage manage some of these things. And so you're going to get a little look behind the curtain here on some of this stuff. Now, I'll go through a few examples of it, but effectively, what they do is they stage manage an incident and then use that incident to embarrass and threaten the target person, and say, well, if you're going to make a fight of this, we'll put it out there that you're a sexual harasser, a rapist, or this or that, or the next thing, and you'll never work in this town again, and so on. So that's the general thrust of what they do. But it's interesting how it comes about. So I'm at a meeting, and all the heavies are in the room, and somebody says, I think John, I'll just pick a name out of a hat here, I think John's not really going to sign off on that project, and we need it signed off on for insurance reasons. And John's holding out because a lot of the details on the document he's got to sign are not accurate. In fact, they're extremely false, and he's not comfortable signing off on it. John asks the boys to say, well, instruct me in writing to sign off, or change the wording of the document, then I don't mind. But no, they want it as it is, because they later want to have some claims to make on insurance and that sort of thing. So they want this guy to sign off on it, and they're not prepared to instruct, because they're effectively asking him to do something that's illegal and extremely fraudulent. So he won't go along with it, and they're insisting that he does. So they decide he's got to go. They've got to find someone who's more amenable and controllable, and who'll just do as they're told without question. So they've got to get rid of this guy. Now it's a bit of a problem, because he's a person of very sober habits. He's works hard, follows instructions and or legal instructions, and he's in many ways a model employee, I suppose. But they decide he's got to go. So they try and look for a legitimate reason to get rid of him. Now, the way it always goes, once they decide they want to get rid of someone, they'll go straight to their expense account, especially if they're an executive, because they've done a lot of travel, they've stayed at a lot of hotels, they've probably done the entertaining of major clients, that sort of thing. So they go straight for the expense account, trying to find some sort of irregularity there. They'll look for the big ticket stuff first, and try and pick through that, and just try and find some sort of excuse or pretext to say that the person was misusing, in this case, their expense account. Now, if they often sort of don't come up with much, or in this case, they came up with hardly anything, a few cups of coffee in an airport lounge that weren't receipted or something like that. So hardly a sackable offence. But so they go out. So that doesn't work. Then they go out and talk to all the female employees that this guy's worked with, and try and get some of them to say that they were sexually harassed, or he used an inappropriate joke, or if they're really desperate, did he ever use a profane word? Did he ever use the F word or something like that? So they'll go around with that, and if that doesn't yield anything, then they'll try and encourage some female staff to come forward. They'll offer them maybe an overseas trip, or a promotion, or a financial reward of some sort. And in some cases, some of them will come forward. In this case, they tried that one, and no female staff member would falsely allege that that he'd acted inappropriately, which is consistent with the guy. I can't believe he would have done that. And the idea of did he ever use a profanity or something? I don't think that would stand up to any sort of scrutiny anyway. So they didn't have any luck with that. So they thought, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to we know his habits. We know that he goes to a certain cafe for coffee before he comes round into the office in the morning. And so what we'll do is we'll set up a situation where there's a young girl dressed in gym outfit, looking really hot, and we'll put her in the cafe. We'll pay her to sort of make eyes at him and start a conversation, hoping that he'll make some sort of inappropriate move or inappropriate suggestion. She's wired, and then we can use that to effectively blackmail the guy. So we'll do that. So they go ahead with that one. And the girl's offered like $5,000 to do the gig. It doesn't work. He just chats to her politely, and then that's the end of it. So they've got to up the ante. So they try and arrange for his one of the sort of secretarial type staff in his section. They'll put in a temp and make sure she's a hot looking girl, and try and get her to do it. So they've now paid another woman to try and stay. Now the whole thing is to stage manage a situation they can use against him, but it's very hard if someone sort of is honest and well behaved and not doesn't behave corruptly and that sort of thing. It's very hard for them to get at people like that. So they've got to go to these lengths and stage manage incidents. Now, if the guy had made some inappropriate comment or utterance or inappropriate move or something like that, they then could have got that. They would have gone to him and said, look, buddy, this is what we've got on film or on tape or whatever. We want you to just quietly walk out the door and not come back and don't say a word. If you kick up any sort of fuss, if you fight us on this, or if you don't do what we tell you to do, if you don't sign this document or do that, then we're going to put this out there. We're going to send it to your wife and kids. We're going to make sure that it gets around the school where your kids go. We're going to embarrass the crap out of you. On top of that, it'll be really hard for you to ever get a job again in this town, and so on. So your life will be ruined unless you go along with us. So this is what they're going to do. But once they own somebody like that, then there's no real going back. They can hold this over this person's head for forever, meaning that this person effectively has got to do whatever they're told when they're told, be it legal or not. So this was the lengths they were going to. Anyway, none of it sort of worked out. So they tried other sort of indirect threats and just tried making the guy's life difficult and giving him the runaround and all sorts of things, telling him that he had to get special sign-offs before he could travel, and then the people that he had to get the sign-offs from refused to give it and referred him someone else. So they created sort of an environment of Franz Kafka, the Kafkaesque sort of environment where they tried to bury him in contradictory bureaucracy to try and send him crazy and that sort of stuff. As it turns out, he didn't sign the documents they wanted to, but he left of his own accord. I mean, he must have seen the writing was on the wall, must have figured out what they're up to. So he left of his own accord, and that was kind of the end of it. It fizzled out. But it's just an indication on the lengths that, and I've seen this more than once, by the way, the lengths they'll go to try and get someone and to nail them and to stage manage false allegations. The other thing they can do, of course, is also just invent something and say that there was a fraudulent act or some sort of impropriety, and then force the guy to deny it. Now, some people will go, fine, let's talk about it in a court of law in front of a judge if that's how you want to play it. And mostly these guys will back down at that point because all the pieces they've put in place are all committing perjury. So unless they own the judge and the court process and the public prosecutions office, unless they've got all that sort of on side as well, they're not really going to, that one's not going to fly. So that they really need to score a bullseye, compromise the guy with some stage managed thing, or they need to find something real. But if it's a well-behaved sort of sober guy, they really got to go to exceptional lengths to nail him, and they often do. But that gives you an idea as to the sort of things that go on, and I'm sure it goes on in the political sphere as well. That's my take on it, and you've been with Tacitus today, a Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.